Started. So today is Thursday, March 13th, 2025, and this is the countrywide coordinator training with Anna von Reitz. And my name is Michelle Ford. I'm the coordinator for the California Assembly. And before we do anything else, I want Robert on Utah to know, Robert, I got your email and I am so sorry. It's been sitting in my drafts, but I will get to you. And in the meantime, do we have anybody on the call that would like to open us up in a prayer? Anybody? All right, hearing none. If you don't mind, I think I'll go ahead. Is that okay with you guys? All right.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
Super, thank you. Okay. Hey, good evening, God. Thank you so much, Lord, for bringing us all together. I was saying earlier, Lord, that we've been called, and I really feel that. I feel that you've called us to do this assembling process. So, Lord, I ask that you continue to bless Anna and James, the ones that have given us this gift of status correction and the gift of assembling, Lord. I pray for their protection, that you give them the utmost protection and long life and vitality, Lord, so that they could continue to bless us with this incredible knowledge and teaching that we get to pass on to others. And so, Lord, I've read your book, and so much about what we're doing is all in there. And so thank you for giving us your word. Thank you for showing us that we shall have no other gods before you. Thank you for showing us that we can be self-governing and not a top-down de facto system, Lord. Thank you for calling all of us together. Keep us safe. Keep us protected from overreaching tyrannical subcontractors, and light our path. Help us to get across the finish line to success, Lord. You promised us that land. So let's all step into that promised land and assemble. Thank you, Lord. In your precious son's name. Amen. All right. What about a volunteer to do the Bivens decision? Do we have a volunteer to do the Bivens?
This is Michael in Ohio. If nobody else wants to do it, I'll do it.
My favorite radio voice. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, me and my laryngitis. Okay, here we go. Bivens versus 6 unknown agents, 403 US 388 from 1971. This meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner to eliminate all conflict and false allegations. Is there anyone in attendance at today's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency or public agency of the federal, state, county, city, or township agencies present? Anyone who is here under false pretenses, anyone who is working for any foreign government, including the territorial United States or municipal United States, anyone who is being paid or coerced to be here, must fully disclose their presence and purpose now or leave the premises or this conference call. If they subsequently show up as federal witnesses, they are discredited for failure to disclose. Are you now or have you ever received money or personal support of any kind from the intelligence community? Is there a response to the Bivens decision for the first time? Hearing none, is there a response for the second time? Hearing none, is there a response to the Bivens decision for the third time? Upon no response to this notice of the Bivens decision, this meeting shall now proceed. Thank you. I yield.
Super duper. Thank you so much, Michael. Okay, so Anna is not here yet, but we do have a couple of hands up. I'm assuming poor Karen, you've been trying to get your question answered for 2 weeks. Do you want to wait for Anna, or do you have a question right now, Karen?
For Anna, and yeah, it's been more like 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
The time went so fast, I didn't get the email to you to submit the question. And so I figured I'd try again.
No worries. Now, just in case Zoom puts your hand back down, you put it right back up. Sometimes when people actually unmute and then say something, it like turns the puts the hand down. So just be on the lookout in case it does that. Okay. I know you've got your hand up.
Okay. Thank you.
You are so welcome. And I know exactly what you mean about time going by. What the heck? It's already Thursday again? We were just here the other day. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go to Mary. Go ahead, Mary.
Well, I'm not sure if I need to wait for Anna or not. So maybe you might have the answers to my questions, or somebody else on the call might have the answers to my questions. My recording secretaries are asking me some questions about things like seals and thumbprints and stuff like that. So I'll just go through it, and if we need to save some for Anna, we can. Okay. Do people have to have a paper record of citizen status? So like, are they supposed to fill out a form? I know some states do like a form saying that they're volunteering to be a citizen and they're changing their status to citizen, or can they just simply say, as long as they meet the criteria for your assembly, because not all assemblies have the same criteria, right? To be a citizen. I'm not sure.
Wait, are you talking about a state citizen?
Yep, state citizen. So is there supposed to be some kind of paper record that they are accepting the duties and responsibilities as an American state citizen?
Okay, so if someone's going to be a state citizen in the LRO, there's an option.
Well, I know. We don't do that. We don't do that because once they've had a credential card issued, you can't change that because then they got to get a new credential card. You know what I mean? So we haven't been using that. We used to, before that happened, we used to just change it on the LRO that they volunteered to be a citizen. But now that we can't necessarily do that because they don't want to go and get a new credential card because they just got one. You know, then would it be recommended that we have some sort of paper record that they have volunteered to be a citizen and to accept the duties of blah, 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 blah?
Okay, so that would happen with an affirmation, but putting on the hat of like if they're in trouble with the de facto. Okay, let's say for example they're serving in a state citizen role and they're running around with a card that says that they're a state national. How on earth are they going to be able to get out of trouble without evidence of their intent to serve and their actual status to be able to serve as a state citizen? So I know it's a pain in the you-know-what to have to get a different card that indicates that they're a state citizen. But at the same time, if it's not on the public record that they are that status and they have a duty and an obligation to serve their state assembly, then what's the point? Right. So really, at the end of the day, people are worried about being accountable and not having their paperwork in order. So when we go through status correction, Anna says it time and time and time again that all we need is our 1779, the one pager, and that was the big relief. Then all of the other documents in the 928 packet don't necessarily make somebody a state citizen, right? And I'm gonna give you a case in point. Okay, case in point. I know for a fact there are people on this call that did the 928 packet that were never even eligible to be state citizens. They did a whole 928 packet and they're running around with a real estate license or a contractor's license or an insurance license. They're not eligible, or they work for the foreign subcontractor. Okay, so, but we used to believe that the 928 packet made you a state citizen. It doesn't make you a state citizen, right? What makes you a state citizen is eligibility and intent.
Right.
So it's both eligibility, intent, and evidence of that fact. So backing up to your question, someone could be a state citizen with only having done the 1779 packet. Right. If they don't have any other ties to the de facto, whether it's federal, state, county, city, or township agencies, if they're otherwise eligible to be a state citizen, then they need to be a state citizen on the land recording office.
Okay.
So,
and then of course, if they do take an office, their affirmation is your rock solid. Yes, they've accepted that office. So.
Okay. Absolutely. And of course, there are those additional documents, the assumed name, the FSIA, the paramount claim. There's a lot of other documents that you can do. And frankly, you probably want to do, but it's not a requirement. It's not a requirement. Terry likes to refer to those as the quote full armor. But Anna, time and time again, said it's not a requirement to be a state citizen to do all of that. You just have to do your 1779 plus the intent, which would otherwise look like an affirmation in an office. Or, you know, some people can be state citizens without actually holding a particular office.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does. Well, we had been having people do the 928s here on Minnesota as part of their eligibility to be a state citizen. Probably this all started well before I ever joined the assemblies, but I'm guessing the original reason for it was to cut as many of those ties and demonstrate that you've cut as many of those ties as possible, right? And
That's
it kind of
exactly
demonstrates that, you know. Okay, so next question. Do all members of the Jural Assembly need to be citizens?
Okay, so no, but yes.
Okay.
So for example, jurors. Okay, so jurors can be state nationals, jurors can be talesmen. Okay, while they're serving on a jury, however, they are temporarily obligated, if they get selected to be on a jury, they are temporary citizens. They are temporary state citizens owing an obligation to the court. What does that look like? It could be as simple as, hey, listen, you got to be in court tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Mostly free people don't get told what to do. Okay. But if you're a juror, then you're a temporary state citizen, whether or not you're actually eligible to be a state citizen. So while you're on duty, you're a state citizen.
Gotcha. But you don't have to fill out paperwork to be a state citizen while on a jury, right?
You don't have to fill out status correction paperwork, but there will be some sort of an agreement.
That's what I'm talking about, an agreement. So, okay.
Yep.
But only once you're ready to serve, only once that jury is being pulled together, right? That you're being told, hey, you're on a jury, then you do that agreement form for that specific case that you're serving on the jury, right?
That's right. And that
Okay.
man or woman has to be willing. You can't have a reluctant juror. You know, you can't force someone into jury duty. However, if they accept that, then they are accepting that voluntary duty to serve.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
That took care of that. I'm mainly confirming everything because that's kind of what I've been saying, but this is just confirming that on audio, whatever, people pull it up and they go, okay, this is what's been said. Good. So for recording secretaries, is it improper, so not proper, for them to use their thumbprint seal along with their official state seal? Or is it still okay?
I think it's a redundancy. They don't have to do their thumbprint. The thumbprint was more designed for state assemblies that didn't have an official seal in place yet for their state assembly recording secretaries to use. So they can use it in lieu of a state seal, but there's nothing saying you can't, a state assembly recording secretary can't use their thumbprint. But it was really one of those situations for when we didn't have a state seal.
Okay. We on Minnesota like to still use our thumbprint just to show that we're still the man or woman witnessing and performing this duty, you know. And last question, is there any requirements for size or shape of office seals? So like your speaker or your, you know, whatever. Are there any requirements for that? Is it kind of up to the assembly?
You know what? I believe that there are, because we went through this in 2022 but I don't have the parameters with me. I believe if you have a continental marshal on your state, you know, for your area, you should probably check in with them, because that's who, when we had to go through this, that's who was advising us about the parameters of our seal. I know, for example, you can't have any solid lines. That I knew. I think the official seal has to be 2 inches maximum or something in diameter, but don't quote me. I think
that's what ours are.
Something like that. Yeah. But double check with your continental marshal, because all the details came from there. It might even be hidden somewhere on TASA, but if someone happens to know the precise location and can help us out, better, you know, more brains are better than fewer brains.
Right on, right on. And, you know, people have been very confused about the difference between logos and seals. And I keep saying, look, a logo is at the top of your document showing the official capacity that this document is coming from. So the office of, you know, the speaker or the office of whatever, it's just a logo that you adopt for your documents, but the seal, the stamp or seal is what executes that document and makes it absolutely official, correct?
Well, you know, it's a semantic thing that we're going through right now, because I would have said it a little bit differently. Logos are typically in the world of incorporated entities, they want logos. Our seal is indicative of our lawful government. And so you'll notice that, you know, let's say that there's a state governor. They're going to use the state seal on their correspondence, right? And it'll say
they're a corporation.
Governor of state of blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
So, but logos, that's a terminology that's typically used by incorporated entities or other entities involved in commerce. Whereas our seals are indicative of our states, you know, and or you could have a county seal, right? You could even have something like a city seal. So seals are different than logos.
Okay. So you wouldn't, on the top of a notice that you're sending out, you wouldn't necessarily have a logo. You might apply your seal to that.
Yeah.
Or only to the bottom,
if
or only to where it's autographed.
Well, it would be, you mean if you're a state assembly recording secretary or what?
No, like say your International Business Assembly is issuing notices to their counterparts in La La Land, right? If they're issuing a notice, would they have anything to indicate that it's coming from the International Business Assembly at the top of the letter? You know, normally where a letterhead would be. You know what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. Well, the International Business Assembly is a different pillar than the General Assembly.
Right.
And of course it has international interface, but it depends on who you're corresponding. What's the jurisdiction? Who are they talking to? Right. I think Anna would do a better job explaining for us about if the International Business Assembly would have a seal that's unique from your state seal. That part I don't actually know the answer to. Okay, we'll have to consult Anna on that when
she comes in then.
Okay,
that was the end of it.
And I actually think that she is here, but we have a couple of hands up, and I know that Doug was
ready to eat?
And Doug was firing off that open mouth emoji.
Yeah. So I highly recommend that everybody do the 928 process. If you ever get into a problem with the de facto, it makes your position way stronger. It also gives you an education more of who you are and where you are if you read those documents. So I highly recommend that you don't just stick with the 1779. You know, our whole Eugene process and everything, it makes it much easier if we've got this 928. And I have a question for Anna. I yield.
Thank you, Doug. And yes, I think that's one of the reasons why Terry always refers to it as the full armor, but just underlying, it's not required to do status correction. There is that distinction. Those additional documents in the 928 packet are optional, but like Doug said, just reading them is a big education opportunity. So, all right, Anna, is that you on the call with us? I think it is.
It is I.
It is I. There she is. I'm going to pin you to the center. You've got lots of hands up here already, Anna, but you might have an education for us before we go to hands. How would you like to handle the hands opportunity? Do you want to jump right into it, or do you have stuff you want to train us on first?
Well, I think everybody needs to be aware that our British territorial subcontractors are making a big move to try to take over the Federal Republic, which would be a substitution of their Federal Republic for our Federal Republic, and a repeat of the theft and fraud that took place in 1871, only with different players. So what we need to be aware of is that the Union states that are represented by all of our counties forming a state, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Union states created two confederations from their standpoint. The first confederation was the states of the Union, our states, right?
Mm-hmm.
The second confederation was the states of America. All right, so everybody always calls us the Federation, but from the standpoint of the Union states, we're the first confederation.
Mm. Which makes sense
Yes.
because of the international interface, the international body that it is, the collection of all 50 states. Yeah.
Right. Right. So, you know, we have the sovereign Union states, and then they operate in international jurisdiction through their states of the Union, and they operated in commercial jurisdiction, global jurisdiction through the states of America. And
Yeah,
it's
the
important to
Confederation.
note that sets of federations and confederations of states come together in pairs, like pairs of bookends. Okay, so the Union states and the federation that we call the Federation formed one set, and from their standpoint, their Union states were a federation, and we were their confederation. We were Confederate states. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then when they formed the States of America Confederation, it was the same thing. They were acting as a federation of states, and the States of America were a confederation. The first confederation and the second confederation from the perspective of the Union states. Of course, from our perception, the federation, we are a federation of states, and the States of America was a confederation.
Right.
So if you just think about it as pairs of bookends, it'll make better sense, and the language will play out better for you. But anyway, people get confused about this, and the important thing is you've got Union states, states of the Union, and states of America. And the states of America won the American contract, the federal contract, the services contract. So when you read it, you'll see the Constitution of the United Small, or Constitution for the United Small U States of America, upper lowercase. Well, the States of America was the Confederation. So the Confederation operated that contract. They held the contract. And they were responsible for booting up and operating the Federal Republic. Right?
Yep.
So the States of America delegated powers in commercial jurisdiction to the States of America subcontractor that we call the Federal Republic. Well, the Federal Republic, meantime, was operating as the United States with a small THE. All right, so in 1871, the British Territorial Congress came in and latched onto our Federal Republic and began operating as our Federal Republic, misrepresenting themselves as our American federal subcontractor. And all this has come out in the last, I guess, maybe 5 years. It's not the Act of 1871, it's the Organic Act of 1871 that is the problem. And so anyway, these guys are trying to boot up a British territorial federal republic and just pass it off as an American federal republic. And they're trying to claim that the federal republic had sovereignty, which of course it never had. The only entities here that have sovereignty are the Union states. Both the States of America and the States of the Union are instrumentalities of the Union states. So there is no flipping way that a subcontractor of a subcontractor of a instrumentality ever had sovereignty to begin with. Nonetheless, they're trying to make the case that the Federal Republic somehow had sovereignty when it doesn't. I had to go over all of that today in an article, so I wrote it all down, and hopefully that will make some of the names and associations more obvious for you all. But anyway, this was a big deal today. We are putting forward our claim, and really I don't see that they have a leg to stand on, but nonetheless they will try. And it would be a terrible thing if they were to succeed, because they'd be able to go right on misrepresenting us and doing all the ugly things that they've been doing since 1871, only they would have passed through a sort of a procedure or a formal claim that would, in theory, allow them to do this. And so the Brits are once again at it and trying to make a claim against our best interest. So our employees, who are supposed to be serving us in good faith.
Well, it begs the question, Anna. So you've written this article, and the Federal Republic obviously is, it isn't our states, okay? But what can the states do to help bolster your efforts in getting the word out in terms of that they are not us, and they cannot steal our identity or latch upon our good name or any of that. And, they can't steal our Federal Republic. They just can't do that. We haven't stood up our 50 state assemblies. We haven't formed our confederation yet. And so how could they get away with this? We have to make sure that they don't.
They're just representing themselves as Americans while they're still in British territorial status. So, it's basically a game of impersonation and false identities and identity theft. And these people are doing this. Some of them are doing it in total ignorance, and some of them are doing it with malice aforethought. And the stakes are high, frankly, because the delegated powers possessed by the original Federal Republic were substantial. And so we don't want some foreign power to sneak in the back door again and substitute their brand of Federal Republic for our Federal Republic. We want everyone to understand who we are, where we're coming from, and that while the states of America directly owned the Federal Republic, the states of America in turn were owned by the Union States. And so the actual owner was not represented in 1871 and was not represented now except for us. We're there as the representatives of the Union States saying, hey, wait a minute. All this stuff belonged to the Union States and you're stealing it, essentially.
Yeah, that's it. Calling them out and making sure that it's on the public record. Because at the end of the day, that's public awareness. So we can all do a better job of explaining, because we've been dealing with them saying, oh, we're restoring the republic. We've been hearing this now for a number of years as I would call it the patriot movement, if you will. The patriot movement is out talking about this, and they're mostly not status corrected people. They don't have the lawful standing to do this job. We do. It's our responsibility. Right.
Exactly. They're acting as British territorial citizens, even if they don't know that they're acting as British territorial citizens. And the only thing that British territorial citizens can accomplish is to set up a British territorial federal republic, pass themselves off as the American Federal Republic, which is not right. It's just another, cuckoo bird situation that they're promoting. And so I'm, having to contact people and go through all this rigmarole and explain to them that all this stuff belongs to the Union States. And, there's no way that these people who are employees of ours can actually do what they're attempting to do.
Wow. How did it become known to you? Like, how did you become aware that today, what was happening today? Was there a news article or something did you get a letter of some sort? How did that come about?
It was Donald Trump. He's talked about this off and on, and he picked it up again and was running with it. And we had to say, wait a minute, Donald, you yourself are still operating as a British territorial merchant mariner. You're still, captain of your ship. So no, you can't be a Brit and create an American federal republic. It doesn't work that way. And I think the point was well taken that you can't be in two camps. You can't be a Brit and form an American federal republic.
No, you can't. They have no authority to do that.
Right.
I can't wait till we can get to the point where we could fire them when they step out of the box. Sorry, you're fired.
Well, the thing is that I think they're trying their best according to the light they see, and of course they think they're American. They grew up. You all know this.
Yeah.
You grow up as an American. You live here. You go to school here. There's no reason for you not to think that you're an American. And then all of a sudden, some old biddy from Alaska shows up and says, "Hey, you know that officially your status is that of a British territorial federal citizen. You're not even being counted as an American." Yeah. So we've all been there. We understand how disoriented and disbelieving and upset people are when they first hear this. But nonetheless, the evidence is right in front of our faces with the birth certificates and the other things that we know about, the acts and legislation. So anyway, I'm sure that probably 75% of the people involved in this business of, we're going to restore the republic are not status corrected, don't realize that they're operating in an inappropriate political status, don't realize that they're doing anything wrong. And yet, in point of fact, they are sitting ducks to be punished, and they are actually not doing anything that will have standing or they're building on sand is what it amounts to. And so we don't want them to build on sand because that's a waste of their time, right? And we don't want them to succeed because if they did, then we'd have another surreptitious British organization coming in the back door and substituting itself for our American federal republic.
Well, all we can do at this point is continue to spread the word and also, hold that line. They have no standing, everybody, they have no standing to do what they're doing. And, you can't have a foreign subcontractor coming in acting like they're running our federal republic. They can't do that. So, and you're right, Anna. I think at the end of the day, we all grew up going to school, learning that we're Americans, okay, which was the lie because they had converted us into property of these subcontractors. However, what's true about that statement is that Americans, when they're properly in their proper status on their state of their union, their state of the union, they do have standing. And they do have this authority. And so what we learned in school is actually true. The big lie was that it didn't apply to us because we were, foisted off into this foreign jurisdiction.
Right.
But everything that we learned, you guys remember that. All the stuff we learned about Americans and American exceptionalism and all the things that, Americans are the employers is all true. So we just get to stand for that, stand for the common sense of it, and not tolerate any shenanigans from these perpetrators.
Yeah, well, and it's totally due to their unlawful conversion activities, registering American babies as federal citizens, that all of this was promoted. And we were deprived of our constitutional guarantees.
Wow. Well, I'm grateful that you were on top of it, staking that claim in the ground so that they, if they try to take an inch, you know, it'll be on the record that no, you can't do that. So thank you for educating them. We obviously have more work to do, to, of course, to continue to get the word out and keep this, our assembling process on the right track, and not to get, you know, sidetracked by any of these distractions.
Well, there are plenty of distractions to be had. We've had a terrible season of distractions and just confusion, chaos. It just doesn't seem to stop. And it would be so much easier if the administration would just kind of come clean and tell people what's going on. You know, if people understood that, you know, we're in the midst of cleaning up a bankruptcy, and all of these audits have to be performed to settle the bankruptcy, then all of this controversy and drama and disruption could be avoided. I mean, even just telling the federal employees, look, we have to let you go. The corporation you work for is bankrupt, and, you know, we're going to take on some of you and try to limp some of these services along, but we can't do it all. So, you know, a lot of former federal activity is no longer going to be possible. Now, wouldn't that just make everything simple and easy? You know, wouldn't that be something that federal employees could accept and go, okay, well, you know? But instead, they're making this look like it's some sort of big political move instead of a business reality. And as a result, then you have all of this Republican versus Democrat stuff.
Bunch of distraction and money sucking. Yeah.
And it's not even true. It's not even true. I mean, and so those of us who know, and we need to tell our friends and family members and explain, you know, well, the municipal government corporation went bankrupt. And it was a Chapter 7 involuntary bankruptcy, so it has to be dismembered one way or another. You know, some of the employees will be hired by the USA Corp, right? Some of them will be just plain let go.
Yeah, just like when any other corporation went out of business. You know what I mean? Remember, you know, companies like Circuit City?
Yeah, right.
Right. When they went out of business, it was like, sayonara. Goodbye.
Well, and really, when you run your country using incorporated foreign subcontractors, this is the kind of thing that can happen. Because, for example, they have no state indemnity. They have no state immunity. They are just corporations like, you know, McDonald's and IBM and Raytheon and General Motors. They're just corporations.
And they're supposed to have some sort of a public benefit too. So when they're, you know, poisoning us and killing our kids and doing all kinds of crazy things, they're not providing a public benefit.
Well, that is it. They are not providing a public benefit, and they're not doing their job. Their real job is supposed to be to serve us in good faith and to provide 18 enumerated services, no more, no less. I mean, even if you extend the olive branch to the extent of allowing that they could possibly be responsible for providing those 18 services. Okay. Even if you did that, it would not account for the proliferation of their quote unquote service network. All of this stuff that's been going on since FDR with the gigantic increase in federal superstructure and bureaucracy, with adding 350 agencies, all of that crap, that was over the top. And I understand why they did it. You know, it was to their advantage to have more people working for them and have more power. But in terms of just fulfilling their contract, no, it wasn't necessary. It shouldn't have been done.
Yeah, they've gone way too far. Way too far. But you know what? As people on our assemblies are starting to recognize that local, the local subcontractors are actually doing things that are going against the constitutions, and they're not acting lawfully within their own jurisdictions, we're seeing, small wins out there, and it's making a difference in terms of social media and reach. People are starting to hear stories about, oh, a nurse got fired because she didn't take the COVID vaccine. And then we found out that went against, she wasn't required to do that to keep her job, et cetera. It was totally outside of their scope of authority. Right. So as people press back against this machine, it's going to sort of chip it away a little bit at a time. And so we're, all these different angles that we're attacking this giant elephant. Eventually it'll be the Goliath that comes down. So we just got to keep pressing on. Keep on, keep on
fast, folks, but it's doing a kind of stagger and stupor move to get there. I'll tell you, it's pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, wow. Marvin.
What was that, Anna? Sorry, what'd you say?
I saw Marvin was putting his oar in the water there.
Oh, okay. Well, are you open to taking some hands? We've got a number of hands up. Well, we've got Karen up. Now, poor Karen, she's had her hand up first in line 3 weeks in a row. So this will be her opportunity to go ahead and ask her question. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you. I'd like to ask a question that was brought up at our assembly meeting today first, and then get to mine if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
People were wanting to know where they could find the proof of the Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And I believed it, and I said I was pretty sure I'd heard Anna said through the Vatican, but people said they had tried to find it there and couldn't. But I'm not sure if I was right. So I wanted to verify that for people who want to be able to show people the truth.
Well,
that there really is a bankruptcy.
Pope Francis entered the United States Corporation into Chapter 7 involuntary bankruptcy in 2015. And there was just a very slight, like a 1 or 2 sentence blurb. There was no big deal made about it. Barack Obama then affirmed the bankruptcy in a public address that he made that is on videotape. I don't recall exactly what the name of the video was on YouTube, but if you go back and search through, I'm sure that it's still there, because they have to give some public notice. Now, the other things related to the bankruptcy took place in the conventions of 2014, where there were all these GS, G5, G7, G whatever meetings that were their Geneva Convention meetings, okay? And these bankruptcies are always announced and consolidated at the Geneva Conventions. They don't like it when we know that they're doing this. right? But that's where you'll find it, is in the Geneva Conventions. And they're kind of described, they call them the G5 and the G7 meetings. Well, the G5 always goes bankrupt together in a group. So you would be looking for the G5 session meetings in 2014 or early 2015.
Okay, make sure they hear that with the recording. Now to my question. You've talked about those of us that have ZIM bonds and IQD and all the ones that are to be valued, and to bring them to the bank. The question is, how and where do we bring them to the bank?
Well, the bank has its own resources for negotiating those bonds for you. And so they're supposed to have like a special office with contact points and whatnot where you can actually submit not the actual bond, but the information on the bond to the bank.
Okay.
And then the bank will act as sort of your agent or intermediary with the Zimbabwean government, for example, and get the funds, in exchange ready, and then they will just do the exchange directly through the bank. And they would be notifying you as they got the process done. You wouldn't just walk in and hand them the bonds. There would be an entire process by which the bonds got transferred directly to the Zimbabwean treasury, for example, or the Iraqi treasury.
So how do we bring these to the bank? So
probably by I would use just express mail.
To where?
To their Houston office, probably, but it could be one of the other offices. They're right now opening up 10 brick and mortar facilities besides the Houston office and the offices in Hawaii. So they'll probably have a variety of offices, and I don't know how they want to structure this service for those who are redeeming bonds. They'll probably designate 1 or 2 offices to do this work and have a special office within those locations.
Will this then go into the prosperity account?
Right, it would go straight into your bank account with them, and you'd be able to spend it using the bilateral system that can translate gold into fiat and fiat into gold purchases.
Okay. And there are people still waiting to get an account, even though they've filled out all the paperwork and put in all the documents that were accepted. Do you have any idea how much longer it will take?
Well, last week they did the asset side of the system, doing transfers from asset side to fiat, and that all went off without a hook. And now this week they've done the reverse from fiat to asset backed, and that has worked. So I can't imagine it's going to take too much longer. As for individual people, I know of a few cases where applications for bank accounts were held up, just stupid stuff. But otherwise, it's been working pretty well in terms of people just going online and uploading their material and getting a bank account.
Well, we have an account, but it doesn't have the word account at the top, and there's nothing there. The people who have accounts and have been telling me they've gotten AFD into their account, it says there should be the word account at the top above the message. It's been months since several people I know have had their paperwork and the documents done, the documents accepted. So we kept wondering, is there anything missing? And people keep saying, no, we can't think of anything else. We did, but they have their account. And we have one person who got locked out of his account when he sent a message to that contact saying, I got locked out, how do I get back in? Within 30 minutes, he had a reply and he had his account up, that word above the message. Others tried doing the same thing and no word whatsoever. So we don't know what to do. We're trying to figure this out because, as you stated Monday on the webinar, it looks like collapse could be coming in a few weeks. I've always felt that the one thing they can do to possibly fund themselves is to finally pull the lever and let the revaluing of the currencies and bonds go through, because they're sitting on a lot of those. And if we've kept them from any other money, if you have, thank you very much, Hannah, from this is maybe their one way to get more funding. I believe they were holding things up till they could control it all, but clearly that is not going to happen. So we're just a little concerned because if we don't have an actual account yet, just the appearance of something, but it doesn't say account, and any way to put anything in or take anything out or any notice of things, what do we do?
Well, I'm sure that the dashboard, which is what you appear to be talking about, will be activated at the same time for everybody. So, and that should happen before there's any kind of emergency about bond redemption. So as far as I know, everybody's dashboard and, the port into the system will be activated at the same time. And once that's activated, it's very user-friendly in terms of being able to transfer things around between, the different account features.
Yeah, that's what we're concerned of. When I spoke with you before a lot of this was completed, you indicated it might be through the commerce side or the trade side, and we didn't know, did we need another account on those sides?
There should be one master account that allows you to go on either side of the system, where you should be able to work with AFD or with fiat currencies. And there are like 184 different currencies available for transactions. So, if you were doing business in India and they wanted their payment in the local currency, the system would simply take out of the AFD side of the account, translate it into rupees, and there you go.
Fantastic. We've been hearing you say to bring Federal Reserve notes into a vault, but we don't know where to go for this vault and how to do that, and if there's any minimum amount you have to put in.
The vault is just one of the many different projects or services offered by Global Family Bank. Basically, if you put money in the vault, put fiat money in the vault, they will stand good for it to be returned as gold backed currency on a one-to-one basis, which, if you bring in one FRN, which is basically worthless, and you get one AFD, which is 1/10 of an ounce of gold. Obviously, you're making out like a bandit doing that, but it's not actually. We're not looking at it like making out like a bandit. We're really looking at it in terms of you're getting back the loss of the value of your money. It's occurred over the past 112 years. So it's really a restitution.
Yeah, we understand that. We just didn't know how we do that, and did we have to have our account active first? Will it then go into our DFG account?
Well, the profit from it would go into your account, but the vault is a separate sort of a project within the bank, and there's a whole big spiel about it at Global Family Bank. You just go there and start looking for the vault program. They'll describe it for you and tell you how to do it.
Mm-hmm. And I know some people have business accounts, but I couldn't see any place to open one.
Now that I don't know. I'm sure that, yeah, we have to have business accounts. It would be a question of what kind of business. I mean, if you're operating an international trade, then you would have a business account, a separate business account with the International Trade Bank. If you were operating in commerce, then you would have to have an account, a business account in one of the commercial banks. So that would be every business would be different.
Okay. So in a nonprofit, would that be considered the same as a business account?
Yeah, well, if it's nonprofit corporation in their system, then you are limited to using maritime commercial banks. And we have a maritime commercial bank, but anyway, that's something that everybody will have to be thinking about in terms of how they wish to structure their business and what kind of law form they want to function under. We basically haven't been aware of all of the choices we had available, and so people have just willy-nilly formed all these maritime corporations. And that has oftentimes been a bad choice for Americans, but they haven't been aware of what their other choices were. So that's also part of the education that the bank is trying to provide, is that how to structure your business so that your business is functioning the way that you want your business to function, and so that you avoid foreign regulatory authorities and various other things that you may not need or want to deal with. I mean, those structures and that law was conceived and built in order to deal with large commercial corporations. Most of us aren't large commercial corporation managers. And so we're better off functioning with a different kind of bank and under a different law.
Does the land jurisdiction have something that would be like a nonprofit? Or do we not need any of that? And
basically, if you're not, pardon me?
It was a hot mic, not me.
Okay. Land commerce is significantly different than commerce at sea, okay? And we run under our own law in all of these jurisdictions because guess what? Our states are sovereign nations. So the big difference is that when you come into our jurisdictions, you're running under our law and you're running as one of our corporations. Right now, you're running as a British territorial corporation, whether you're doing it as a nonprofit or you're doing it as a S Corp or a C Corp or anything of the sort. So you want to rethink that. Do you want to be a British corporation? Really? Or would you rather be an American corporation and run under American law? That's what I mean. Everybody's going to have to look at these things in terms of their choices. We don't traditionally have nonprofit corporations. A nonprofit is simply a business structure and it doesn't owe any tax or reporting. So if you're a charitable organization, you don't run as a corporation and you don't have tax or reporting requirements.
Well, then that's the answer, because it doesn't have to be incorporated. Like a church example.
Well, actually, no, because you're indemnified. You see, uh, they can't indemnify anything or anyone because they are operating in commerce that is, and you don't have to operate in commerce. The irritating thing, for example, with the churches is that the churches were already completely tax exempt and had no regulatory requirements or obligations at all. And yet the British swindlers came by, sang a song and danced and said, hey, look at this great deal we have for you. Sign up as a 201c3 corporation and you won't be taxable. Well, they weren't taxable in the first place. Hello? But they all signed up. And then they all got into the quagmire. They all got into the cow pie and inherited all these uh, regulations and regulatory requirements and all this paperwork that they had to maintain, and they had to pay in as employers, and they had to do withholding for their employees, and they all this other stuff came to them as a result of that one bad, useless decision to incorporate, right?
Right, right, I get that.
So it's the same thing with nonprofits. You don't have to, label yourself a nonprofit. You don't have to incorporate. 9/10 of the corporations that incorporate as nonprofits are doing so that they can offer those who donate to them a tax advantage. But if the majority of people who are donating anyway are not taxable, it doesn't matter, does it?
No, it doesn't.
So it's sort of like the situation with the difference between a private physician and a medical doctor. If you get licensed as a medical doctor, then you have all of these obligations. Then you can be conscripted into the military service and all these other things. But if you maintain your position as a private physician, then they're playing with the dogs in the other room. I'm sorry. Anyway, if you maintain your position as a private physician and are never licensed as a medical doctor, then you don't have any of those requirements. You see, we have encumbered ourselves through our ignorance. And we've lost our rights because we've given them away and accepted contracts from these vermin instead. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. So
No, that's okay. We need to know all this. This is really great education. I greatly appreciate you, Ann, and all the work you're doing. And I'm glad we have a powerful grandma on our side instead of a president or a king or a queen.
yep, all you've got is a grandma, but she's a feisty one.
Yeah. Well, we do appreciate you, and I appreciate, the information. And I will yield now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right, next up we've got Austin. Go ahead, Austin. Austin?
Michelle, I think I got bumped.
Yes,
Austin
sorry.
Jefferson?
This is Austin on Kentucky. I have a simple question. I was just wondering the process to go about getting on the Sunday calls, the Sunday coordinator training calls.
Those aren't training calls. Those are actual coordinator calls. That's for people that have already stepped into operating as a coordinator.
Okay, do I just email Terry Sam and
if you're working as a coordinator there in Kentucky, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, Terry's the one to contact.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Austin. Now, I think that I heard Doug Minnick say that he got bumped earlier. So go ahead, Doug.
Thank you. So at 51 minutes after the hour, I put in Twinning versus State, or Twinning versus New Jersey, which is a court case that shows that United States citizens have no First Amendment, or rather a Bill of Rights, or in very few cases.
Yes. Right, because they're not parties to the Constitution.
Right. So this is a great thing to show your friends, to say that you're not one of we the people, and you don't have any rights. All you have is privileges. There's the evidence right there.
Twinnings versus New Jersey?
Twinning, TWINING versus New Jersey, 211 US 78. And the quote is on the bridge between page 98 and 99. It's in the chat.
Okay, good.
51 minutes.
Doug, could you possibly send that to my email? I remember that case, but if you just send that to my email, I'd appreciate it.
Will do.
Yep. Well, this is part of what we've been trying to tell people, to wake them up, so that they realize that they've been mischaracterized and registered as a Brit, and that they have no constitutional protections in that foreign political status. And if you stop and think about it, you go, oh, well, they've got me down as a British territorial. Of course, British territorials are not protected by our Constitution. It's just logic. And this is why so many of these judges that they've had sitting in these courts have said, if you mention the Constitution again, I'm going to hold you in contempt. Mm-hmm. Because they have it on their side that you're registered as one of them, and they are trying you under their law. Right? So yeah, Doug, that's a good one.
Yeah. Awesome, Doug. Thank you so much. And I did copy it and paste it and send it over to Anna's cell phone. So Anna, you'll get it in your email and also by text.
Thank you, dear.
You're welcome.
Wait up. I've got more.
Uh-oh. He's on a roll now.
Okay, so what's a good source for learning about common law? I know about Koffler and Rappy, I know about Shipman, I know about the genius of the common law.
The excellence of the common law. Actually, we've got a, I believe it's a 17-volume set on its way here. It's American Common Law and Procedure from the very early 1900s. So we're going back quite a way, but it's written in a very commonsensical and simple way. It's very logical. It's well organized, and it gets into all the details. So I think we're going to use that for our basic basis of our courts and our procedures. We're just going to adopt it. Let's see, what is it called? It's American Law and Procedure, and it's 17 volumes, and it was published in 1910, before the Federal Reserve atrocity began. And so I've just been told that Amazon is willing to publish the entire 17 volumes bind them and sell them at $72 a book. So that's just about $1,000 for each assembly to have its own set and be able to use that for standing up their courts.
Okay, I was looking for something that was more accessible to everybody. Like Shipman is only 350 pages, I think.
Well, we do have a kind of a primer that Terry has on the TASA site that was written by Kevin Annett for the use of his international tribunal regarding the crimes of church and state, which is a very good summation. It's only 106 pages long, I think, but it gives you all the basics right there so that you can constitute and operate a common law court, and also kind of filling people in on their responsibilities. So we do have that. That's a kind of quick and dirty get started guide. I'm just looking for something that each assembly can have as part of their court that is reproducible and readily available and well organized so that they can look up different subjects, different topics, and have it kind of at their fingertips. And that's the best I've found so far.
Okay, and what was the name of the one you said was on the TASA?
I don't know this precise name, but it was by Kevin Annett, and
okay.
It's something like common law for jurors or something of that nature. It's just a brief little book, and it's really pretty good. It gives you a nice firm background so that anybody who needs to prepare to stand as a juror has a reasonably good background in how it works and the history and who they are in the process.
Yeah, my focus is trying to find something that I can teach that get enough people up to speed so they recognize what they're looking at and have some idea of how to actually stand up their courts and recognize when they see something that's not right, because I'm sure we're going to have some of that in our first go at it.
Oh, it's so confusing. Oh, yeah, it's called the Common Law Training Manual.
Anna, I'm just wondering, is this the book that you're talking about? Establishing the Reign of Natural Liberty, a Common Law Training Manual?
Yeah, by Kevin Annett.
There you go, Doug.
Okay, thank you very much. I yield.
Yeah, you can just order those off of Amazon or from him directly. I'm sure we've got some copies for sale on the TASA website. And, as soon as I get more information about American law and procedure, the 1910 17 volume set, I will get it out to everybody. I think this will be an invaluable resource for us in setting up our courts, because it is detailed and yet it is very simply worded. It's not a lot of legalese.
Super. All right, Doug, anything else?
Yeah, I'll put Cruden versus Neal in the chat as well. That's another one that goes through that no man is bound by any law without his consent, and consent means contract, people. I yield.
Okay, next up, we've got Alice.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
This is a question that we need help on in New Jersey. Our assembly was not aware that our previous coordinator was still acting as a recording secretary. She hasn't attended any of our meetings for over 5 months and has not had any communication with any assembly since she resigned. We are still having problems with documents on the LRO going missing and unauthorized notices being uploaded. Upon receiving the information that she was still a recorder, our assembly had a meeting and it was unanimous call to recall vote of no confidence. What else besides this can we do? We've also sent an email, I believe, out to Terry and yourself, and Terry came back with the fact that you were the only one that could remove her. And I would love to end this thing on the LRO situation, and I don't do it.
Actually, the LRO has the authority to remove any recorder that's doing screwy things. Terry must think that I have some authority I'm not aware of. but no, the LRO has the authority to, discipline its own recorders. And so if you've got a recorder that is recording records that don't belong, if I'm familiar with this at all, it's Emily in New Jersey who is trying to record court records or records that should be in a court clerk system on the land records. And so anyway, if she's not doing the job and not doing it right, it's well within the Assembly's authority or within the LRO hierarchy and organizational structure to pull her recorder credentials. It happens all the time.
Okay. So do we go back to Terry again and ask her to remove her?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
I mean, if you've got a recorder that's not doing the job and not functioning properly, I personally told Emily that her complaints needed to be recorded with a court clerk, or failing that with an ombudsman. And
okay.
Maybe you don't have an ombudsman at the present moment. I don't know. Maybe you don't have a court clerk at the present moment. I don't know. But one thing is for sure, a complaint of the sort that she was trying to record belongs in, it doesn't belong in the land recording system that we have, the LRO. So I hope that everybody concerned can get their heads together and start acting like adults, because I'm really, 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 really sick of having all the kind of petty personality problems that come up in the assemblies landed on my door. I've got enough work to do without that. And at the end of the day, working together within the context of the state assemblies is really your job. Now, you're the ones that have to make or break it.
Okay. I thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I yield.
Michelle, your lips are moving.
Oh my goodness. Sorry about that, everybody. Amy's hand accidentally went down, but Amy, we'll go ahead and go to you before we go to Mike. Somehow your hand went down.
Yeah, when I offered that book. So thank you very much. Hi, Anna.
Hi.
This is a follow-up to the questions I asked you over email. And out of respect for your time, would you rather answer those through email, or would you like to do that now?
Are there still questions about the PKTF?
No, it was regarding the last one in requirements for participation in the state assembly.
Okay, well, why don't we handle that, because that's a topic of interest to everybody.
Yeah. Okay, so before I asked if it was appropriate to require a man or woman to cancel their voter registration prior to participating in the state assembly? And you said yes, for the protection of the individual and the organization. So thank you for that. I just wanted to mention that because I thought it might be helpful for others. Just today, someone in our assembly noticed on his Global Family account that some of the documents, it says right on there that they are required for state assembly participation. So I'd like to ask you about those documents. So is it appropriate to require someone to publish their declaration of political status in order to participate in the state assembly?
Well, that's just one of the very basic forms that we do require. You have to transfer from the sea to the land before you can be part of a land assembly.
Good. And then in addition to that, is it appropriate to require someone to notify the state of state, like the U.S. Secretary of State or the state Secretary of State, with that declaration of political status?
Well, okay, I should clarify a couple things. You can make a declaration of political status using a number of different routes. Some of us old timers recorded our declarations with state of state land recording offices because they were the only land recording offices still open. Okay. And we may have done that at a state level or we may have done it at a county level, but in any event, we did it. And some people have done it simply by publishing it in the newspaper. That's how they used to do it in the old days, is that you just take out a little blurb like a personal ad in the newspaper. And some people have done that, and that's still a valid way of doing it because, now, let's face it, our government hasn't changed much in 160 years. It hasn't been operating. So there are other ways other than the 1779 declaration paperwork that you can use. The bank says that because that's what the bank uses. It's the simplest, quickest, fastest way for them to function. So that's how they do it. But when you get to the LRO in your own state, the LRO in your own state has the facility to be able to take in the other 928 documents if you want to record some of those. So the LRO is really a multi-function and broader spectrum of services than the bank can offer. The bank just strips everything down to the ground zero basics. And that's really all they have time for. Now, in terms of notifying the U.S. Secretary of State, well, that is a very appropriate thing to do for you as an individual. It's for your protection that you do this because then you have notified the proper officer. We have not received any new instructions from the United States Secretary of State indicating that there's any other office or officer involved in this kind of thing. So as far as we know, they remain the only office and only officer that is actually required to take notice. And they should have, they always used to have, an office within the U.S. State Department that had an ability to let all of the other departments and agencies know. And they changed the name of the office, and we don't know where the function went. They're hiding the cheese again. But so long as you send it to the U.S. Secretary of State, you have proof that you gave proper notice of your change of political status.
Right, and we do recommend that everybody do that for their own protection,
right.
Because them as a man or woman. but is it appropriate to require that before someone participates in their state assembly?
As long as they've done the other paperwork and are recorded, no. You know, it's something they need to do for their own sake, but and we certainly advise it and encourage it. But anyway, that is one of the things that I just wish people would take it in good stride and do.
Yeah. Okay, and I believe the answer will be the same for these other two, but I do want to bring them up because they are listed on Global Family as being required to participate in your assembly. And that's the Common Carry Declaration and the fee schedule. Now, these two I've never heard of being any type of requirement to participate in your assembly.
No, they're not.
Okay.
You certainly can do the Common Carry, but you're not required. Most people want that in case they ever do have to carry a gun. They don't want to be limited to wearing a holster and swaggering around like a gunfighter. But
right.
Anyway, and as for the fee schedule, you know, that's something you may want to do so that you can establish a claim against them for time that you have to spend replying to their nonsense, you know, as a potential means of establishing a lien and getting some money back out of them for your time. I always considered it sufficient reward just to get rid of them.
Right, I agree. Okay, those are all the questions I have. Thank you so much, Anna. I yield.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Okay, Mike, go ahead, and thank you for your patience, Mike.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I got bumped off a couple of times, but no problem. We'll get there eventually. And I sent these ahead of time. I don't know if you had a chance to review them, Anna. My first question, the Global Family, the Vault application, it looks like they probably just picked it up from a commercial process that they converted over to get the information on how to set up an account. But it starts off with you have to put in a title, Mr., Mrs., whatever, and then you talk of the country of residence, which we know isn't correct, and then you have to determine your citizenship of the country, which we're not any longer. So anyway, we don't really have a remedy for those that get on the land and then want to go back and use the safety vault. And so I know you've said it's a kind of a one-way process. If you go back and sign something that shows you as a U.S. citizen, that's a big no-no from what I've understood from your teachings. So, but yet we are requiring it to get into this to the vault, and I'm not sure if it was just overlooked or where it is, but I'm wondering on how we can escalate that to fix that.
Well, remember that the vault was constructed under the presumption that we had all these people that were coming in from the sea to the land, right? So when they're still at sea and they're using their FRNs, right? They want to come onto the land, and it's like crossing a border into another country and exchanging your money, right? So that's how that got started, I'm sure, where they were looking at everybody as coming in from the sea jurisdiction, and therefore on the sea jurisdiction you would have a rating, you'd have an office, you'd be a Mr., a Mrs., or whatever, right? Because how else would you have FRNs? Right?
Oh yeah, I get that, but we're down, a lot of us got in, came onto the land, and then Global came on, then we found out about Global. So we're after the fact.
I'll take it up with Hunter. It's just a question of whether you're coming from the land or the sea from the land,
Sure. Yeah, I knew it was an oversight for us that made it to the land, but I don't want to jeopardize my standing on the land.
Right. Well, we have the same problem if you try to lodge a complaint with any of the state senators or the U.S. senators. Their contact forms always require that you have to have an office, or you have to choose a person status somehow. You have to be a Mr., a Mrs., captain, you have to have some sort of office, or you have to basically say that you're operating as one of them before they'll take a contact from you. So the best thing to do is just write to the rats and keep track of your letters to them.
Exactly. And okay, so my next question, a few weeks ago, I talked about trying to do something to fix to create some legitimacy behind what we're doing. I say we're the first wave. We're the black sheep that are wearing tin hats, and it's and I'm trying to, I'm trying to get on the third person on our county so that I could be a coordinator or do some more things, but it's just my wife and I right now. And so I see the holes in, you have a great narrative on what you created and you've accomplished, and they don't want to admit it on their side, and they're still off trying to do republics, as you said earlier. But one of the ways I thought that is the internet is a non-owned, it's a thing that exists out there in air jurisdiction. And you said, well, .gov and .com and everything has been taken over by the commercial, but I found an opportunity that we could expand the namespace. We could create subdomains and put, for instance, land.mcdonalds.com or for every domain, and require, by noticing the internet community, they need to be able to provide more information about who's holding the public harmless, and so forth, and create some legitimacy behind things. Anyway, I kind of summed it up in a couple of pages and wanted to present it and see if there isn't a way that we could get something that would help validate to the unbelievers that are out there. Because if it takes off in that community, then it would spread like wildfire.
Well, my experience, almost all of those people cling to the idea that they're U.S. citizens of one kind or another, right?
But if we could help educate the engineering side of them and make a dent, would you look at the doing
sure.
a notice
Sure.
if I just send it to you?
I'll look at it. It's just, I'm saying that if they think they're U.S. citizens, then you can show them the Twinings versus New Jersey case that Doug just came up with, and prove to them that they have no constitutional guarantees in such a status.
Yeah, absolutely.
That might kind of knock their socks off a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And and then if it could spread that way, they could really help out.
I think so. I think Doug came up with a good one. I'm kind of ashamed because I knew about that case. I just hadn't thought about it in a long time.
Right. And then the last, and along the same lines, there's so much information, and now TASA's grown so big, and you've got 5,300 articles plus now, and it's so overwhelming to try to find anything, because even though you might have the site that does searches, you search for the word Pope or Francis and you get a couple hundred hits, and there's no way to know if it's the article that you wrote yesterday or one that you wrote 6 years ago. So I was hoping to try to put some of the very basic information in a statement in the form of an affidavit. And I had sent you the notice of inquiry, and I asked you about it, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks ago, and we got off talking about something, and you didn't acknowledge receiving it, or that there could be a response. And I'm wondering if we could go ahead and do that so that we could start creating what I call the chain of truth, in the form of an affidavit so that we could put just the real basics together and be able to present people with the summation of everything that's happened.
Well, if at first you don't succeed in getting in touch with me, try again.
Okay,
there are, you know, every week I get inundated with contacts of all kinds. Sometimes I get 45,000, 50,000 emails a day.
Yes, I appreciate when you have responded to things, and I didn't want to be stepping on toes or anything. I just wanted to make sure, and I will resubmit it, and hopefully we'll create something that others can use. And I appreciate it and yield.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well,
I
hope more of these people wake up and realize that they have no constitutional rights or guarantees because they've been misidentified.
Let's sure hope so. And that case that Doug dropped in, just like you said, is a helpful piece of evidence.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and Mary is up next. I just wanted to check in on you, Anna. We've got 7 more hands up. How are you doing?
Well, as you can tell, my voice is getting rough, but I'm soldiering onward. We're going on what?
We're at
1 hour and 45 minutes thereabout.
Yep.
So we're doing okay.
Super. All right. Mary, go ahead, Mary.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. And I'm glad you're doing better too, that you're feeling better. We've had some, what's that?
Please let Graceland know that her artwork is on the refrigerator with all of Grandma's other artwork from kids around the country.
Aww.
We like it very much. And
she's gonna love that.
We have the loon set up by the coffee pot, and he overlooks the comings and goings of all the guys coming to get coffee every day. And when we're all stressed out, we make him do his little burbling loon call, and that just takes us right away into a different world.
That's awesome. I will be passing that on in our assembly meeting on Saturday. That's fantastic. And Graceland is my granddaughter, so I will be telling her tomorrow morning that she's got another Grandma that she's got artwork hanging up in.
Yep, and the traditional spot right on the refrigerator.
Yeah, you should see my cupboards.
Yeah. Yep.
So in our assembly, we've been having this discussion of, you know, logos and letterheads and stuff like that. Should we be using logos on letterheads for any kind of notices that we're sending out to, you know, our counterparts in the state?
I would.
Okay. So logos are appropriate at the top of the page to designate that it's coming from the General Assembly, et cetera. Okay. All right, cool. Next one, should the International Business Assembly or Jural Assembly, Militia Assembly, should they be sending out any kinds of notices at this time, or would they wait until we're fully standing?
Well, it's a good idea if you take everything through the General Assembly, because otherwise these other assemblies have a tendency to sometimes do things that are off track, and then you're caught having to go back. When they're sending out notices and things of that nature, notices should be coming through the General Assembly. And you know, when you go further and you're all finished and working away, it'll be up to your General Assembly whether you you know, give any notification authority. But I think that traditionally, the General Assembly is the one that sends out notifications, and if it comes from a International Business Assembly, it's simply signed by the International Business Chairman.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yep. And if they're coming from the General Assembly, they'd be issued from the Speaker of the General Assembly, right?
Right. And, you know, if it was something that was coming out from the militia, for example, a militia assembly, it would be signed by the militia director, or, you know, the chairman of the militia committee, or, you know, but it would still be coming out from the auspices of the assembly as a whole. Gotcha. You know, it would not be a separate assembly.
Okay, so from the General Assembly, but issued by the office of whichever IBA, General Assembly, Militia Assembly. Gotcha. Got it. Okay, and then do our assemblies have, a couple two weeks ago on Lisa's podcast, you were talking about Marshal at Arms versus Sergeant at Arms. Are we currently in our in-session period before we're standing? Do we have a Marshal at Arms or a Sergeant at Arms? I'm guessing Marshal at Arms still, right?
Right now you have a Marshal at Arms that's being borrowed from the Federation, basically.
Okay.
And as you know, upon being fully seated and all of that, then the protective person will be a Sergeant at Arms.
Okay. But not until we're seated. Nothing about a Sergeant at Arms until we're seated.
That's what I would go with, yes.
Okay.
Because,
okay.
you know, right now, we have a seagoing Marshal at Arms office that is provided under the Federation's auspices for the protection of the assembly while it's assembling. Immediately after the assembly is fully seated, I mean, it can function in General Assembly just, you know, perfectly well. But when it has all of its functions up and it's fully seated, you no longer need our protection. You're in, you're then self-responsible. You're then going under your own power, and you know, then you'd have a Sergeant at Arms.
Okay. And is the Marshal at Arms still for right now in the assemblies a citizen status, or can they be a national status?
They almost have to be a national status because
of Federation.
Because their position is being borrowed from the Federation.
Okay. All right. That settles that. All right. And then final question, size on seals for the assembly, recording secretary, stuff like that. Is there a size requirement on those that indicate that they're land jurisdiction? I know we use red, and like for the assembly seal, for us in instance would be the Minnesota Assembly, no closed borders, you know, everything open, that kind of stuff. But for like other seals, like your, you know, well, that one too, but like for a recording secretary stamp or, you know, anything with the General Assembly, is there a size requirement for those as far as like 2 inch, 1.5 inch, anything like that?
We try to make them, number one, legible. Okay, that's a concern. And we try to make them conform to the traditions of the land and soil jurisdictions, which is to have no enclosed borders around the information. You can have a border that's, you know, say dashed lines or stars or, you know, some other little unitary figure that's being used to create the border, but we avoid having solid lines around any of our seals. Otherwise, the thing you want to think about is oftentimes as a practical matter, you want to have that recorder seal be pretty small because they're going to be stamping paperwork that oftentimes is at the edges of the paper, you know, just as a reality. And so you don't want a big, huge recorder's stamp.
Right.
I've seen some that are 4x4.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you go, what the? Well, we wanted to make sure they could see it. They had sort of a John Hancock attitude here. You like that?
Bam.
There's my 4x4 telling you. But yeah, but as a practical matter, when you're processing documents and there's you know, just a press of stuff that you have to get recorded, it's better to have probably about say 2 inches long by an inch or 1.5 inches tall at most. You don't want a huge recorders.
Right. Yeah, we use 2-inch ones currently, just making sure we're doing good with that. So they're very clear and legible. There's no guessing whose office is whose. So, okay.
Good.
That's all I had. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you for sending me the beautiful artwork.
You're welcome. Our pleasure.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, Miss Louise. Sorry, I didn't mean to call you Miss. Hi, Louise.
Hi. Hi, Anna.
That is the Louise. That's not.
I'm glad to see you are better. We had a meeting yesterday. You didn't make it.
I have been overwhelmed, dear. I have had.
I know.
I just get up and try to run through my day as best as I can, kids. And
I got a proposition for you.
What's that?
I got an answer to fix this issue with Trump and the U.S. military.
Oh,
and
yeah?
It's called our project.
Okay.
I need approval.
Okay.
You don't have the time.
Okay.
It's not just my eyes on it. It's a lot of people's eyes on the project they're qualified, they have enough expertise, all kind of people coming out of the woodwork to help out with this. My proposition is let us launch it.
Sight unseen and then take responsibility for it. I don't know. I think I better make time is what I think. I better just make some time. I better get up at 4 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock.
Now you and I could have a meeting.
Why don't we do a Zoom and just go over it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. Now, when?
Well, Monday and Tuesday of next week are shot. Actually, I canceled an appointment and I have tomorrow afternoon. I've got 2 hours tomorrow afternoon.
Ooh, great.
That work?
Yep. What time is that time you talking?
3 and 4. I've got from 3 to 5.
3 to 5. And that's what time zone you're in?
I'm in Alaska, so I'm 4 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time. So when it's noon on the East Coast, it's 8 o'clock in the morning here.
Okay. I'm going to call you at 3 o'clock. I'm going to send you the Zoom link tonight.
Okay.
And we're going to make this happen tomorrow between 3 and 5. Okay.
Pull the lever Kronk, right?
Yes. All right. What did you think about the international newsletter?
I thought it was pretty good. I did send back I think it was one little thing. It's like a one sentence thing, just a little blurb.
Yeah, I got it. That date that was Jim's date of landing down on the Merritt.
Yeah, something like that. It was trivial. I mean, but otherwise, yeah.
All right. All right, we will talk then tomorrow.
All right.
All right, thank you. I yield.
Take care.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Louise. Okay, we still have 5 hands up. How you doing, Anna? You doing all right?
Well, so far, I think I could probably make it through Carly. I see she's on top of the list here. I finally made it into the queue myself. I'm down here at the bottom with my chin on the.
Well, take it away, Carly, while Anna's still got some voice left in her. Let's go.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Anna. Hey, really great to talk to you. Thanks for taking my question. Are you sitting down? Oh yeah, you are. You're sitting down. I know you've talked until you're probably feel like you're blue in the face for the last 2 weeks about public notaries, but there's something that I really need settled in my spirit that I haven't heard you say yet, and I've been listening intently. It has to do with section 16 of the General Assembly Handbook. Public notice notaries is what it's titled. Can I read just a couple sentences from there to refresh your memory, maybe? I know it's been a while.
Sure.
Thank you. Our land and soil jurisdiction public notaries are confirmed in office as elected public officials. They use stamps and red ink. So that's my question, I would really like a solid confirmation from you as to whether or not public notaries are elected. Another paragraph, our public notaries are member of our county and state courts and hold a position of trust similar to that of a state justice or county justice of the peace. Properly overseen due process proceedings subject to declaratory judgment by an elected public notary have the full force and effect of the public law and cannot be reviewed or overturned by any private agency or state court. Each actual public notary elected should be rigorously trained in due process proceedings and supplied with a red ink public notary stamp, simply saying blah, blah, blah. So
that's us. That's our government. That's how we do it.
Public notaries are elected.
Yes, our public notaries are. Their public notaries are not. Their public notaries are not elected.
Right. Their notary publics are officials.
Right.
And is it the other way around? We're officials, they're officers.
Yeah, but yeah, they're not elected. They're appointed, they go through a training, they get a commission, like a naval commission, right?
Officer, yeah.
Yeah, but ours are elected.
Okay.
We just haven't had many.
Right. Right. It even says
started.
that up a little higher in this section. Notary publics, because of our state general assemblies, haven't been operating properly and haven't been electing, confirming our state public notaries. So yeah, we just need to get on the ball and get our elections done. And there you have
your general assembly set up.
Right.
Yeah, because our public notaries are part of the jural assembly process. They're all members of the court.
Yes, exactly. Okay, that does it. Thank you so much. We rely heavily on the General Assembly handbook for direction. So I really wanted to get that clear in everybody's mind.
Right. We've just been a lot of our people have had to use their notaries, So it's a different jurisdiction, different requirements of office, different empowerment. But yeah, our notaries are significantly have significantly more authority and weight than their notaries.
Right. We get that. And Washington is working on our election ballot. So we wanted to make sure that notary is included. If it's meant to be on the ballot, it'll be on the ballot.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. I yield.
Thanks for asking the question. That was a good one. That's one that, everyone needs to be aware of, We suffer such a confusion of law because we have to deal with their law, and now we're learning our law, and we have to deal with their similarly named officers versus our officials, and it does get confusing.
It does, but you straightened it out nicely. Thank you again.
Take care, dear.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Harley. Okay, just a few more hands. Sandra, before I presume, could you take 3 more questions, Anna?
Well, hopefully.
All right.
Depends on how many questions there are. We might have 36 questions. Each one of those girls might have a dozen. We'll see what happens here. We're taking our life in our hands.
All right. Good point. All right, Sandra, go ahead. If you could keep it brief, that would be awesome.
Okay. As far as the indigenous Indians or American Indians and their treaties that they have, how do it stand against ours? Were they sovereign? Do you have any understanding about the Indian treaties? And I remember last week we were talking about with the treaties came the Constitution. So does that stand in the same way for the Indians and the different? Oh, I can't think of that site, but what information do you have on that as relating to, say, if they want to be sovereign on this side or sovereign as indigenous Indian? I don't know the right term, so sorry about that.
Well, it's kind of confusing because people are using words in ways that are kind of exclusionary, rather inclusionary, and they're inclusionary words. You'll see me use the word indigenous in describing living people. All living people are indigenous, all right? If you've got a flesh body and you're standing on the soil, you're an indigenous person. You're one of the people, right? So they're using it to try to make a delineation between them and their group, between it and everybody else. But in fact, anybody who's breathing is indigenous. It's unavoidable. Anyway, so we don't make a distinction in that sense. Their treaties are basically useless from 1861 onward because they were sea treaties that were being issued in a fraudulent fashion as if they were land treaties. So they were being issued by corporations operating in the jurisdiction of the sea, and they were being misrepresented as land jurisdiction treaties to the natives. And so all of those things that were signed, like the Fort Laramie Treaty and those sorts of things, that was all just bogus bullshit that the Brits were passing off on the native people. Prior to that, there were some notable land treaties.
You want some spaghetti?
There were some land treaties with King George. Those sunsetted when the Americans won the Revolutionary War, but the natives should still have been paid in gold, which is something they need to pursue with the British government. And then there were just a very few treaties with our governments, with our actual states and with our actual federal or federation government. So those treaties were all honored. They're honored to this day. And so what we have here are 248, I think, known native nations and 50 nation states, and we're all occupying the same land and soil. And so if you're say you're a Winnebago and you're born in Wisconsin, you automatically have a dual national status where you are a member of the Ho-Chunka Nation and you are also a Wisconsinite. So that's how that works. And it's really to everybody's benefit that it does work that way. They have their own traditions, their own culture, their own language. They have their own authority within their nation. They have their own law. And that's all to the good. But they also are considered state nationals, and they can participate like anybody else in their state government or not. It's up to them.
Okay, thank you for that information. I yield because one of my other questions was answered than another lady. So I'll yield the other question so the other people have opportunity to speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra. Okay, now it says J Brimage, but in my mind that's Mike. Is there a different Brimage on
No,
Washington?
that's me.
Okay, super. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you for your time, Anna. With the assumption of contract by the United States of America, LLC, and the approaching Real ID deadline, who's handling the passports? Do you have any updates?
Well, the Postal Service is always handling the passports. And at the present time, the Postal Service is being managed by the military. So I am assuming that the military is issuing passports. They're probably doing it simply by having taken over the municipal offices that were issuing passports. My overall take on that is that they don't know which foot they're standing on. They're having a very difficult time producing the background information. That, like I said, my husband went to get a state ID because he had to conduct some business with the state, and had to provide them with, an identification of who he was. And the most recent information they had about my husband was a 1963 photo of him when he joined the Air Force. So I suspect it's going to be held to pay on the passport end of things, but nonetheless, a passport is what is required. We already have a real ID in that we have a physically based identifier on our state credentials, and that is our thumbprint. So if you've got state credentials and you have your thumbprint on your state credentials, you've already met any requirement for a real ID. That, anything that is imposed by the post office internationally or globally, you've already met the requirements.
Then we need to get it through the head of TSA.
Well, it's anybody's guess at this moment because the names of the offices are changing. The military is taking over a lot of different aspects that the municipal government did before in the wake of the municipal government bankruptcy. Above and beyond them is the Universal Postal Union, the UPU, that all the subcontractors and service providers have to obey. There is a UPU manual about the passports. Basically, they cannot deny you a passport, and if they do, you have the right to create your own passport. And so I guess we'll have to dig up the UPU instructions on passports and make that available too. But yeah, this is going to be one of the more difficult sticking points because the military isn't designed to issue passports.
Okay, thank you for dealing with this.
Trying to, by bit among all the other things.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, Paula. Now hands keep going up, you guys. Okay.
I don't have a specific question. I just was wanting to maybe give a little bit of insight to some of the global issues because I also do the recording for global, mostly so that I could help Louisianans get straight and make sure everything was good to go with them. But when people set up an account on global, they're actually setting up their profile. And what was happening is some of the recorders for global were making their profile active. And what that did was it made it hard for those that needed to create the actual bank accounts. It made it harder for them to find them to activate and get their account actually created. So what I've been doing is if anybody's having any issues with their profiles all set up on Global, but they need they're still not showing that account, I'll put my email in the chat if they want to let me know, and I will compile a list. I've done this already several times for people, but I don't know how they're finding me, but they are. And I'm sending it straight to Josh. And I go in, I make sure everything's there, all documents are uploaded and accepted, and everything's good to go. And then I'll send Josh a list of names saying these accounts need to be activated. So I don't mind doing that if anybody needs some help. I yield.
Oh, thank you, Paula. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, no way. Look, it's a group effort here. I mean, I've tried to keep Louisiana off of Josh's email list. So I try to handle as much of it as I can on my end. So that's mainly why I did the training with Josh, so that I could, really kind of keep us off of his radar.
Well, he has so much to do that I don't know how he manages what he does what I do anymore, but having help that can navigate that for people and make it easy is
Well, that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, thank you very much, Paula.
No problem.
Right. Kirsten. Go ahead, Kirsten. Hey, Kirsten, you're muted. All right, let's go on to Rocky. Maybe Kirsten's having some audio things. Go ahead, Rocky, on Nevada.
How you doing there? Did Anna step out?
Oh, she's here.
Okay. The question is on how many General Assembly people do we need to bring the court up?
Well, you should have a total of 26 jurors, and then your court officers, which would be your justice of peace or your state court justice, depending on whether you're doing county or state, and your bailiff and your clerk court, and hopefully a clerk secretary who actually keeps the minutes of the proceedings and recording of the proceedings.
Okay.
So right around 30.
What's that?
Right around 30 people.
Around 30 people? Okay, we got that. On the seals, like for the state and the county, do they have to have a emblem of the actual state, like the outline of the state or whatever in the seals?
Well, we kind of recommend that so that it's obvious from, but no, it doesn't strictly speaking have to. You can just use the name of your state. Could be Wisconsin or whatever, you can just use the verbiage if you want to. Or, you could use, some states have a particular animal or tree or recognizable flower or something that is associated with their state from the beginning of their state status. Some states will have like a magnolia, or they'll have a pine tree or something that is, indicative of their state.
Is the seals, from my understanding, I think they're 1.5 by 1.5, or they a different size?
Well, we were just discussing that. It depends on what the seal is. The notary seals and those sort of things tend to be rather small. They tend to be about 2 inches by 1.5 inches, so that they fit comfortably on a lot of different document formats. The state seals for like the state courts, they tend to be significantly larger. I think ours is 2.5 by 2 3/4, but that's pretty small for most state court seals are usually somewhere around 3 inches in diameter and they're usually round.
Mm-hmm. Is like the one for the sheriff and the militia and all those the same?
The sheriff's office usually uses the county seal with with the office of the sheriff is part of the verbiage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have their own separate logo. It's all the same county logo, but it has, office, sheriff, blah blah county, or whatever. So they use the verbiage to make distinctions between different officers or officials, elected officials.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you. I yield.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you, Rocky. Okay, Kirsten, are you able to unmute?
Might have given up.
Mm-hmm.
Had to serve dinner to her family or put the kids to bed. I know how that works.
Well, looks like we might be wrapping it up, Anna.
Well, my voice thanks you.
Yeah.
I've been talking all day.
Yeah, and we all thank you. We're so grateful for you making yourself available to us week after week. And we slog along, but people do listen to the playback, and the word is getting out. So it's not all in vain. All your 40 plus years of doing this are slowly going to be paying off here.
Hey, I'm not the only one who's got 40 years in here. There are a lot of guys like Doug Minnick and Hunter and others who've been slogging along just as long as I have.
I've only got 30.
Well,
that's
they are, yeah, but there are a lot of people out there that have been pulling on their piece of the puzzle for a long time. And we were just exceptionally lucky that we had the affiliations and contacts and insights and information that allowed us to bring it all together.
Awesome. Well, thank you very, very much. Now, I can't tell. Rocky, did you put your hand back up? Did you have something that came up?
Yeah, I wanted her to answer the question about, she talked about the Jubilee and the bank, if she could say something about it at all. And that's it, I yield.
Well, this was really interesting because back in 2008, when when we first addressed this would be the second round with the Pope, there was a discussion about, okay, what do we do? And one of the weird things about the Vatican, for example, is it has all these keyholes in the walls around the Vatican. And those keyholes are supposed to line up with the constellations in the night sky. But they're over 1,000 years off. They're 1,100 years off from the position of the constellations. And we were supposed to have a Jubilee 800 years ago that never happened. And there hasn't been one since. So something happened 800 years ago, and something happened 1,100 years ago that threw everything off. Something that was functioning prior to that ceased to function. And when you go back and you dig into it, you find out there were specific things that happened in the church and in those time frames that account for why we're seeing what we're seeing now. Anyway, the Pope, Benedict XVI, began taking very astute action to correct. And one of the things he did was he set up a system of regional postmasters to establish an authority that would act as a comptroller to get all of these national postmaster services in line. Okay, so first he set up the regional postmaster system. Then he set up to get rid of the office of the Roman pontiff and get the secular side of the church out of the church, to actually separate church and state, which he realized too late was part of what was wrong, is that the church had gotten too far into the world of commerce, and too many of its officers and its priests were actually not serving as priests, but were serving as businessmen, right? So he wanted to correct all of that and get the church back functioning as a church. And he wanted the business to be subordinate to the religious orders, so that it was run like a business, but it was run by subcontractors outside the church and not by the office of the Roman pontiff. Anyway, he was making all of these changes, and everything was going along pretty well. He named a postmaster for the newly created regional postmaster job. He named James Thomas McBride as the regional postmaster for North America, which included Canada, the United States, and Mexico. So, and interestingly, he gave James Thomas McBride the seal of St. Peter. Now, if you're familiar with seals, you know that that's to conduct business in international jurisdictions. And he told James Thomas McBride to open up the storehouses of the Lord so that the people would not suffer in the coming disruptions. Okay, because he could foresee that there would be disruptions in services and all sorts of stuff coming down the pike as they dismantled the federal civil service and related services throughout the world. So he was preparing for a major change and a jubilee that would erase all the debt, especially the odious debt, and return everyone to their roots, to the land and soil of their roots. And we were making good progress. And then the FBI showed up, and they burst into James Thomas's house. They took all of his stuff. They took his computer. They took his records. They took the seal of St. Peter. They trumped up some bogus charges against him and threw him in jail for 2 years, and didn't let him have his blood pressure medicine. They irreparably damaged his heart, and he got out of jail, and about a year later, less, he died. So the FBI still has the seal of St. Peter, and the Global Federal Reserve Board of Governors in the Philippines still has our great seals that they purloined in the wake of the Civil War. And we are still after all the aforesaid guilty officers and institutions to return these seals to us, because the seal of St. Peter is the property of the Pope. Okay, and the seal of the United States and the United States of America, those seals are ours. They belong to us in our country. And these yahoos have stolen them, and they are employing them without our permission. And so, yes, I'm going right after the rats for all of that. But the the issue of the Jubilee is that we are owed a Jubilee and have been owed a Jubilee for 800 years. So all of the debts accumulated over the past 800 years need to be set aside and basically taken off the books. And that's what we've been working on, because if you start really tracking back on this stuff, a lot of this, a lot of the really ugly things, like the personage, started in the Roman Empire. And to really address it, we need to go way back and just clear everything. And, you know, wipe out the debt and begin trading on things that are real. So, yeah, we're very much still working on that with the church. But it's difficult and it's confusing because, of course, there is no pope now. There is a man holding a title, but he's actually operating as the patriarch of the West, right? And the ministerial office was taken by Pope Benedict XVI to the grave. So there's no ministerial office available. It was not passed on to anyone, and no new pope has been elected. So this is a pretty kettle of fish they've gotten themselves into. There's no office of the Roman pontiff anymore. As far as I know, the Urban Trust of Rome was absconded with by Jamie Dimon. The whole situation is just crazy. But the storehouses of the Lord refers to accounts and supplies and things that the church has laid aside for this time. And he made it clear that this is what's happening now is something that the church has foreseen. This is something that the church has made allowances for. There was a sort of a passing reference to Joseph in Egypt that indicated that the church had stored up supplies and money and means to survive the end times, so that, and the way it was set up was through the divine providence. They set up the divine providence so that anyone who was willing to live at peace with their neighbors and embrace the only two laws of the divine providence, which is basically to cause no harm, and, you know, to have love for the creation and creator. Anyone who was willing to live by those standards could enter the divine province and be safe. This was a safety net that the church had prepared for all people of goodwill. Anybody that was willing to live at peace, be they Jew or Christian or Muslim or Hindu, anybody that was willing to live at peace was to be welcomed into the divine province. And so they had set up the air jurisdiction to receive people from land and sea and soil. And they were in the process of doing this when Benedict, you know, had his health issues and retired.
On a earlier one that you said that there may be one in April, a Jubilee, is that not happening, or you know?
Well, we're pursuing it. We're hopeful that it will happen in April, because all of the authorities involved that would need to sign off on that are as far as I know, everybody that has to sign off on it has either signed off on it or is willing to sign off on it. It's just a matter of, you know, can we engineer something that sweeping in such a relatively short time. I wish that we still had Pope Benedict XVI with us, because he was very astute, and for a man his age, he was extremely active. So then there's been no one in that position of authority who could work the system the way he could. So we're kind of we're stuck trying to resolve the obstacles that were put in the way. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and shut it off for now and take a break? You need it, and we love you. So
I already spent a day's worth of work this week trying to thread through the issues related to Thomas McBride's mission and estate, because we still have so many things that were related to his work that the church has kind of dropped the ball on, and yet are still in play. So yeah, we're still working with all of that. We're still working with the issues related to the Paradigm Project. Trying to get restitution for Heather Ann Tucci-Duref and the other members of the project. They tried to do the right thing, and they were severely punished, and that's not right. So yeah, there are all these other things like this that we continue to work on.
thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rocky. And thank you once again, Anna. I'm sure lots of people want to say thank you to you and give you lots of love, but we'll go ahead and we'll wrap up the call. Go ahead, everybody.
Bless you.
Thank you so much, Anna.
Good night, guys. Have a good week.
Good night, Anna. Have a great
Thank
week.
you, Anna. Love you.
Good night.
Night, Anna.
And
Bye-bye.
good night, Michelle.
Thank you.
Good night, Anna.
Thank you, Anna.
Love is all there is.
That's it. Take care.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Stay hydrated.
Good night. Nighty night.
Good point.
Love you, Anna.
All right. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week. Have a great week. Go ye forth and multiply.
Thank you, Michelle.
Good night, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Cheers,
Michelle.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.